Hey there. Ready to unlock some serious potential? Today we're taking a deep dive into this fascinating book, Coming Alive,
Oh, yeah.
which is all about tapping into your life force and breaking free from those pesky inner obstacles that are holding you back.
It's not just about understanding this powerful energy, though.
Right.
It's about getting your hands dirty and using specific tools to actually make a change.
Oh, I love a good toolkit.
Yeah,
And this one is packed with actionable strategies.
absolutely.
But before we get to those tools, let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is this life force the book keeps talking about? I mean, it sounds a bit mystical, doesn't it?
It might sound that way at first, but
Yeah.
it's actually a concept that's been around for centuries in various cultures.
Hmm.
Think of it as the universal energy that flows through every living thing,
Okay.
the driving force behind creation and evolution.
Like,
Like prana in yoga,
right.
in Tibetan Buddhism, Chinese medicine,
Bro.
or even what some call the breath of God.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. Yeah.
So it's like this invisible energy that's all around us.
Right.
And it's also within us.
Right. Absolutely. And think about it this way. Have you ever experienced those moments where you felt incredibly alive?
Oh, yeah,
Like you were overflowing with energy and inspiration?
for sure.
Maybe it was the birth of a child, a moment of deep connection with nature, or that time you finally nailed that challenging project.
Yes,
Those are glimpses of your life force in action.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing those moments are in stark contrast to the times when we feel stuck, drained, and like we're just going through the motions.
Exactly. And that's where the book introduces this idea of part X,
Okay.
the inner force that seems to sabotage our efforts, drain our energy, and convince us to stay small.
Part X, huh? It sounds a bit ominous.
Well, it can be.
Yeah.
It's that voice of self-doubt that whispers, you're not good enough. The
Well,
procrastination monster that keeps you from starting that project,
yes.
or the fear of vulnerability that prevents you from putting yourself out there.
Oh, I know Part X all too well.
It's like it knows exactly how to push my buttons and keep me stuck in those negative patterns.
And the sneaky thing about Part X is that it doesn't just make us feel bad.
Right.
It actually depletes our life force, leaving us feeling exhausted and uninspired.
Yeah.
It's like an energy vampire.
Okay, so how do we fight back against this energy vampire? The book mentions these 4 tools, right?
Yes.
Can you give us a sneak peek into what they're all about?
Absolutely. Think of these tools as your secret weapons in the battle against Part X.
Okay.
The first one is called the Black Sun, and it's all about learning to resist those tempting impulses that lead to self-sabotaging behaviors. It's not about sheer willpower, though.
Okay.
It's about transforming that impulsive energy into something more productive and fulfilling.
Transforming energy. Now that's intriguing. I've always struggled with willpower alone.
Right. It's much more effective than just trying to white-knuckle it.
Right.
For example, imagine you're stressed and have a craving for a whole bag of chips
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
instead of just trying to resist that urge.
Okay.
The Black Sun helps you redirect that energy into something healthier, like going for a walk or finally tackling that creative project you've been putting off.
So it's like channeling that energy into something that actually nourishes you rather than depletes you.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second tool,
Mm-hmm.
the vortex. This one is all about tapping into an unlimited reservoir of energy overcoming inertia and those moments of overwhelm.
Uh-huh.
Imagine having a reserve of energy you could tap into whenever facing a creative block like writer's block.
Oh, man.
The vortex tool teaches you how to access that energy on demand.
Okay, the vortex sounds like something I desperately need. I'm the queen of procrastination and energy slumps. What about the third tool?
The third tool is the mother, and it's all about overcoming demoralization and cultivating a deep sense of self-belief and possibility.
The mother. Huh. Does this involve calling my actual mother for advice? Just kidding. But seriously, can you explain how this tool works?
It's not about getting advice from your mom, but rather about tapping into that archetype of unconditional love and support.
Okay.
The mother tool uses visualization to help you connect with a figure who reminds you of your inherent worthiness and potential, especially when you're feeling down on yourself.
That's beautiful. It's like having an inner cheerleader who always has your back, even when you're doubting yourself.
Exactly. And finally, we have the tower tool, which might be the most intense of them all.
Okay.
It's all about facing our fears head on, especially the fear of failure and rejection that often holds us back.
Okay, the terror tool sounds a bit daunting. What exactly does it involve?
It involves visualizing yourself, jumping into the abyss of death, and experiencing a rebirth with renewed courage and perspective. Sounds intense, right?
Intense is an understatement.
Mm.
Is visualizing death really necessary? Isn't there a gentler way to overcome fear?
It's a powerful metaphor for confronting those deep-seated fears that keep us playing small. Now, the book clarifies it's more about shifting your mindset than literal death.
Right.
It's about recognizing that even in those moments of perceived failure or rejection, there's an opportunity for growth and transformation.
So it's like a symbolic death of the old self, the one who's limited by fear, and a rebirth of a more courageous and resilient self.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming your power and embracing those challenges that push you outside of your comfort zone.
Wow, these tools are powerful. But I'm curious to hear about how they actually play out in real life. The book uses stories to illustrate these concepts, right?
It does. And one story that really stood out to me is about a guy named Marty who's struggling with anger issues and a gambling addiction.
Oh, okay.
He really wants to set a good example for his son, but he keeps getting pulled back into those destructive patterns. Classic Part X move.
Oh, I can relate to that feeling of wanting to break free from those self-sabotaging cycles, but feeling trapped.
Mm-hmm.
So how does Marty use the black sun to fight back?
Well, the book breaks down the black sun into 3 steps. First, you consciously restrain the impulse. It's about saying no to that immediate gratification and acknowledging the urge without giving in.
So it's not about suppressing the impulse entirely.
Right.
It's more about creating space between the urge and the action.
Right. Then you acknowledge that inner void, that emptiness that Part X is trying to exploit with the impulse, whether it's overeating, gambling, or lashing out in anger.
Okay.
Finally, you redirect that energy toward giving and creating rather than taking and consuming.
So in Marty's case, instead of giving into the urge to gamble, he could channel that energy into spending quality time with his son or working on a creative project that brings him joy.
Exactly. And what's fascinating about Marty's story is that he has his ups and downs, just like we all do.
Right.
He manages to avoid a fight with his wife and daughter, which is a big win.
Good for him.
But then his son, Chad, calls him out for his hypocrisy, pointing out that he still gambles.
Ouch, that's got to sting.
It does. But instead of giving up, Marty realizes that if he wants to teach his son self-control, he has to model it himself.
That's a powerful lesson for all of us, isn't it? We can't expect others to do what we're not willing to do ourselves.
Absolutely, and that's where the black sun comes in.
Yeah.
It gives us the power to break free from those self-sabotaging cycles and step into a more fulfilling way of being.
So the black sun helps us transform our impulses, but what about those times when we just feel completely drained, lacking the energy to do anything at all? You mentioned the vortex earlier.
Right, the vortex is perfect for those energy slumps.
Okay.
The book shares this story of Beth, who's struggling with low energy after her mother's death. Years have passed, but she's still stuck in a pattern of withdrawal, missing out on opportunities because she just doesn't have the energy to engage with life fully.
It's like she's living life on low battery mode and nothing seems to recharge her.
And that's where the vortex comes in. It's all about visualizing, spinning energy, tapping into that infinite source of power that's always available to us, even when we feel depleted. Beth learns to use the vortex in 2 ways. When she feels drained and disconnected from the world, and when she feels overwhelmed by demands and struggles to transition between tasks smoothly.
That's interesting. So it's not just about getting a quick boost of energy. It's about smoothing out those transitions, those moments when we get stuck in the in-between.
Exactly. Think about how much energy we waste on those mental and emotional transitions, those moments of resistance and procrastination.
So much.
The vortex helps us move through them with greater ease and efficiency.
So we've covered the black sun for impulses and the vortex for energy. But what about when we're feeling completely demoralized? You know those times when we've lost hope and it feels like nothing will ever get better?
We've all been there. The book introduces us to Anne, who's struggling with feelings of hopelessness after a painful divorce. She's convinced she'll never find love again and that her best years are behind her. Classic demoralization, right?
Absolutely. It's like that dark cloud of negativity that hangs over everything and makes it hard to see the good. So how does the mother tool help lift that cloud?
The mother tool helps us connect with a source of unconditional love and acceptance.
Okay.
A figure who reminds us of our inherent worth and potential. And this isn't about denying the negative feelings, it's about transforming them.
Right.
You actually experience that feeling of demoralization as a tangible substance, something you can visualize and release.
Well, it's like a spiritual detox. You're letting go of all that toxic self-doubt and filling yourself up with belief and possibility.
Exactly. You then visualize the other figure feeling her love and acceptance wash over you, and finally you release that negativity to her. And what's interesting about Anne's story is that her breakthrough with the mother tool actually leads to a challenge with her husband.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting. Tell me more.
Well, Anne's husband, who's been dismissive of her emotional struggles, suddenly feels threatened by her newfound strength and independence. It triggers his own insecurities, leading to a power struggle in their relationship.
So her using the tool actually disrupts the status quo of their relationship.
Right. It does. And this happens a lot, right? When we start to change and grow, it can trigger unexpected reactions from those around us, especially those who benefit from us staying small and dependent.
It's like a ripple effect. Our personal growth can create waves in the larger system, even if those waves are initially uncomfortable for those around us.
And that's why the mother tool is so important. It not only helps us regulate our own emotional state, it also gives us this strength and resilience to navigate those challenging relational dynamics that can arise when we start to step into our power.
So we've talked about conquering impulses, overcoming low energy, and finding hope in the face of demoralization. But what about fear? Specifically that fear of failure and rejection that holds so many of us back. You mentioned the tower tool earlier.
Right. The book tells the story of Andriy Soko, a talented journalist who sabotages his own success because he's terrified of criticism and rejection. He's stuck in a victim mentality, blaming others for his lack of progress and playing it safe at the cost of his dreams.
So he's avoiding the potential pain of failure, but ending up in a different kind of pain, the pain of unfulfilled potential.
Exactly. And that's where the tower tool comes in. Now, remember how I said it involves visualizing yourself jumping into the abyss of death.
Yeah, that part's still freaking me out a little.
I get it. But the book emphasizes it's more about changing our relationship to fear than literally dying.
Okay.
It's about embracing that feeling of free fall, that surrender to the unknown. And in that surrender, we find a new level of strength and resilience.
So it's not about avoiding failure. It's about changing our relationship to it, realizing that it's not the end of the world.
Precisely. The tower tool helps us see failure not as an end, but as a necessary part of the growth process. And it gives us the courage to keep going even when it feels scary.
Okay, we've got these 4 powerful tools to combat Part X, but do we need to use all of them all the time? It seems like a lot to juggle.
That's a great question.
Huh?
The book actually emphasizes the importance of choosing the right tool for the right situation. It's about developing self-awareness and understanding which tool is best suited to the specific challenge you're facing in that moment.
So it's like having a personalized toolkit for navigating the ups and downs of life.
Exactly. And as we become more skilled in using these tools, we start to access something even deeper: the qualities of truth, beauty, and goodness.
Okay, now we're getting into some profound territory. Can you unpack those qualities for me? What do they even mean in a practical sense?
Absolutely. Let's start with truth. The book argues that Part X distorts our perception of truth,
Okay.
leading us to believe in self-limiting narratives and lies that keep us trapped in those negative cycles.
So it's like those negative thought patterns that we get stuck in, those stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what's possible for us.
Exactly. And the key to accessing the truth is to recognize those lies and challenge them. But it's not a one-time fix.
Right.
It requires ongoing action and self-reflection, consistently checking in with ourselves to see if our actions are aligned with our deepest values.
It's like creating a mental blueprint for the life we want to create and then making sure our actions are bringing that blueprint to life.
You got it. And the book even suggests that we can actually visualize ourselves living in alignment with the truth, which can help us shift our inner state and make that alignment more tangible.
That's a great tip. I'm a big believer in the power of visualization. Okay, so we've got truth. What about beauty? Is this just about appreciating pretty things?
It's so much more than that. Beauty, as described in the book, is about recognizing the life force manifesting in the ordinary world. It's about those moments of awe and wonder that we often miss because we're so caught up in the mundane.
Yeah.
It's about appreciating the beauty in the everyday and the uniqueness of our own perspective.
So it's about cultivating a sense of gratitude for the beauty that's already present, even in those simple moments.
Exactly. And the challenge is that Part X tries to trick us into competing for beauty, making us believe that it's scarce and that we need to fight for it. We get caught up in comparisons, envy, and a constant striving for something that's already infinitely available.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that. Scrolling through social media, comparing myself to others and feeling like I'm not enough.
That's Part X doing its dirty work. It wants to keep us feeling insecure and dissatisfied. But when we tap into the beauty that's present in our own lives, in our own unique way, we break free from that trap.
Okay, we've covered truth and beauty. What about goodness? This one feels particularly relevant in today's world where there's so much division and negativity.
It is. And the book makes a fascinating distinction between good and goodness. Good, it argues, is this fictional state of purity that Part X tries to convince us we can achieve. It's a static, unattainable ideal that leads to denial of our shadows and ultimately hypocrisy.
So it's like that pressure to be perfect, to never make a mistake, to always be good, but that's an impossible standard to live up to, right?
Exactly. And it often leads to us hiding parts of ourselves, pretending to be something we're not. Goodness,
Yeah.
on the other hand, is about taking right action in the present moment.
Mm.
It's an ongoing process that requires humility and a willingness to acknowledge our own darkness, our flaws and imperfections.
So it's about recognizing that we all have the potential for both good and evil within us, and that true goodness comes from consciously choosing to act in alignment with our highest values, even when it's hard.
And that choice, that commitment to taking right action, is what strengthens our connection to the life force and ultimately allows us to experience a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment.
Wow, this has been so insightful. I'm already starting to see how these concepts can be applied to my own life, but I'm curious to hear more about this higher world the book mentions. It sounds a bit mystical.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a concept worth exploring. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into what the higher world actually is, how it relates to the life force, and how we can access it in our own lives. Stay tuned.
I can't wait. All right, we're back and ready to explore this intriguing concept of the higher world. So what exactly is it? Is it some kind of spiritual utopia where everything is perfect and problems cease to exist?
It would be nice, wouldn't it? But it's not quite that simple. The book describes the higher world as a realm of infinite possibility and wonder.
Hmm.
It's accessible through cultivating our life force. But that pesky Part X we talked about earlier, our inner saboteur, does everything in its power to keep us blind to it.
So it's not a physical place, it's more of a state of being, a different way of perceiving reality.
You could say that it's a state of being that can actually be reflected in the physical world.
Okay.
In those moments when we experience a sense of awe and interconnectedness. Those moments when we feel a deep sense of belonging and purpose.
Like when you're standing on a mountaintop gazing at the stars and you feel this overwhelming sense of wonder and connection to something much larger than yourself.
Exactly. Or when you witness an act of extraordinary kindness, generosity, or creativity that takes your breath away. It's like a glimpse into a different reality, a reality where limitations fade and possibilities expand.
Okay, I'm starting to get a sense of what this higher world might feel like. But why is it so hard to see it, to experience it consistently? I mean, if it's all around us, why do we get so caught up in the negativity and limitations of everyday life?
The book argues that Part X, that inner saboteur, traps us in a cycle of negativity and limiting beliefs.
Uh-huh.
It's like we're wearing these dark glasses that filter out all the beauty and possibility that surrounds us, convincing us that this limited perspective is all there is.
It's like we've forgotten how to see the magic in the world, how to connect with that sense of wonder and awe that we probably felt so easily as children.
Precisely. And Part X loves to feed on our cynicism, our doubt, and our fear.
Right.
It whispers, don't be naive. The higher world is just a fairy tale. Stick to what, you know?
Yeah.
Stay safe. Stay small.
Ugh, I know that voice. So how do we break free from those limiting beliefs, those Part X traps that keep us from experiencing the higher world more fully?
Well, that's where the tools we discussed earlier come in.
Oh.
They help us crack open those dark glasses and let the light of the higher world shine through the black sun. Helps us transform our impulses.
Right.
The vortex helps us tap into unlimited energy. The mother helps us overcome demoralization, and the tower helps us confront our fears.
So by using these tools, we're not just managing our emotions or coping with challenges, we're actually shifting our perception of reality, expanding our awareness to include this higher world.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective is often marked by a profound sense of awe and wonder, a belief in the possible, and an understanding that life is about more than just survival. It's about meaning, purpose, and connection.
It sounds like waking up from a dream and realizing that reality is far more expansive and wondrous than we ever imagined.
That's a great way to put it. And that realization can be incredibly empowering. It gives us the courage to pursue our dreams, to connect with others in a more meaningful way, and contribute to something larger than ourselves.
Okay, I'm convinced. I want to experience this higher world more fully. How do I get there?
The book emphasizes cultivating a sense of wonder and openness.
Okay.
It's about being willing to question those assumptions and beliefs that Part X has instilled in us, to open our minds to the possibility that there's more to life than meets the eye.
So it's not about passively waiting for the higher world to appear. It's about actively seeking it out, expanding our awareness to include it.
You got it. And that seeking can take many forms. It might involve spending time in nature, meditating, engaging in creative pursuits that bring you joy, connecting with people who inspire you, or simply practicing gratitude for the beauty that already exists in your life.
It sounds like it's about aligning our actions with those higher qualities of truth, beauty, and goodness that we talked about earlier. By living in alignment with those values, we create a bridge between the everyday world and the higher world, allowing that energy to flow into our lives more freely.
That's a beautiful way to describe it.
Yeah.
And as that energy flows, we start to see the world differently. We become more aware of the interconnectedness of all things, the inherent beauty in the everyday, and the infinite potential that lies within each of us.
It sounds like we're not just transforming ourselves, we're actually contributing to a transformation of the world around us.
Exactly. It's like the ripple effect you mentioned earlier. When we access the higher world, we become a source of that energy, radiating it outwards and inspiring others to do the same.
That's such an inspiring thought. But I have to admit, I still have a bit of skepticism. I mean, why don't we see more evidence of it in the world around us? Why is there so much suffering, conflict, and division?
That's a valid question.
Right.
And honestly, it's a question that has puzzled philosophers and spiritual seekers for centuries. The book suggests that one of the biggest obstacles to experiencing the higher world more fully is our collective skepticism. We become so conditioned to believe in a limited materialistic reality that we've lost touch with our sense of wonder and possibility.
So it's like we've collectively forgotten how to see the magic. We've bought into the lie that the higher world is just a fantasy, a fairy tale.
That's one way to look at it. And that's exactly what Part X wants. It wants us to stay cynical, to stay small, to give up on our dreams, and to settle for a life of mediocrity.
But the book offers a different perspective, a more hopeful perspective. It suggests that even in the midst of darkness, even in the face of all the challenges we see in the world, we can still access the life force and connect with the higher world.
And those connections, those moments of transcendence, inspiration, and love act as a bridge between the two worlds, reminding us that there's more to life than what we see on the surface.
So it's not about denying the existence of darkness and suffering. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose a different reality, a reality that includes both the light and the dark, the beauty and the pain.
Exactly. And that choice, that commitment to accessing the life force and connecting with the higher world is what ultimately transforms us and transforms the world around us.
So it's not about escaping reality. It's about expanding our experience of reality to include something more, something greater, something that connects us to our true selves and to each other.
You said it. And that's what this deep dive is all about. It's about exploring the tools, practices, and perspectives that can help us access that deeper reality and live more fulfilling, meaningful, and connected lives.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. This whole concept of the higher world is really resonating with me. But I'm curious, before we move on, have you personally experienced this higher world in your own life?
I have. And those experiences, those moments of awe, wonder, and connection are what keep me going, especially when things get tough. They remind me that even in the darkest of times, even when it feels like the world is falling apart, there's still something greater at play, something that transcends the limitations of our everyday experience.
I love that. Those moments are like little reminders that there's more to life than meets the eye, that there's magic and wonder to be found if we're open to it.
Exactly. And those moments, those glimpses of the higher world are available to all of us. It's not just for saints, mystics, or spiritual gurus. It's for anyone who's willing to do the inner work to cultivate those qualities of truth, beauty, and goodness, and to use the tools to break free from the limitations of Part X.
So it's not about passively hoping for a better world. It's about actively creating one both within ourselves and in the world around us.
You got it. And that creation starts with a single step.
Yep.
A step towards greater awareness, a step towards connecting with our life force, and a step towards embracing the possibility of the higher world.
This has been so insightful. But before we wrap up our deep dive, I'd love to hear more about how this transformation actually plays out in the world. How can accessing the higher world help us navigate the challenges and complexities of everyday life? Let's explore that in the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back, and as we're wrapping up our deep dive into the life force and the higher world, I keep coming back to this idea of like the tension between the two almost like two different realities, right?
Hmm.
Like this constant push and pull between light and darkness, possibility and limitation.
That's a really good observation, and the book doesn't shy away from that tension at all.
Right.
It acknowledges that the lower world, with its limitations and injustices and sense of scarcity,
Yeah.
it's very real, and it's easy to get caught up in the drama and negativity of it.
It really is.
Mm,
It's easy to feel like those limitations, they kind of define us and we get trapped in those cycles of negativity and it feels like there's no escape.
absolutely.
It's like this constant battle with Part X just trying to keep our heads above water. And, that's exactly what Part X wants us to believe.
Right.
It wants us to stay small, give up on our dreams, and accept a life of just, mediocrity and resignation.
Yeah.
It thrives on keeping us disconnected from our life force and from those possibilities of the higher world.
But the book offers a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
A more empowering perspective.
It does.
It suggests that even in the midst of all the darkness and the challenges that we see in the world, we can still access the life force and connect with that higher world.
Yes.
It's not about denying the existence of the lower world.
Right?
It's about recognizing that we have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can choose to align ourselves with a different reality, a reality that includes both light and dark, but allows us to tap into a greater source of strength and wisdom and inspiration.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like we have this incredible power within us, this ability to choose which reality we want to focus on,
Yeah.
which energy we want to feed. And by choosing to cultivate our life force and connect with the higher world, we're not just transforming ourselves, we're actually contributing to a transformation of the world around us.
That's what's so inspiring about it. It's not just about personal growth and self-improvement. It's about creating a ripple effect
Yeah,
that can spread outward and inspire positive change on a larger scale.
absolutely. And, one of the biggest obstacles to experiencing the higher world more fully is our own skepticism.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
We've become so conditioned to believe in this very limited and materialistic reality that we've lost touch with our sense of wonder and possibility. We've kind of forgotten how to see the magic that's all around us.
It's true. And that cynicism, that attack on wonder, is self-defeating, isn't it?
It is.
Because when we close ourselves off to the possibility of the higher world,
Yeah.
we close ourselves off to the transformative power of the life force, to that infinite potential that lies within each of us.
Absolutely. Part X loves to feed on that cynicism. It wants us to believe that the higher world is just a fantasy, a fairy tale for naive dreamers.
Right.
But what if that cynicism is actually the real illusion?
Ooh, I like that.
What if the higher world is more real than we can even imagine?
It's like we're choosing to see the world through a tiny keyhole when there's a whole universe waiting to be explored if we just open the door.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the tools that we've been discussing in this deep dive,
Yeah.
they're like keys that can help us unlock that door. They help us break free from the limitations of Part X and open ourselves up to those infinite possibilities of the higher world.
And that power is available to all of us, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just for saints and mystics.
Right.
It's for anyone who's willing to do the work to cultivate their life force and to choose a reality that's aligned with their highest values and aspirations.
Exactly. It's not about passively hoping for a better world. It's about actively creating one. And that creation starts within each of us. When we transform ourselves, we transform the world around us. We become beacons of light, radiating the energy of the higher world and inspiring others to do the same.
Okay, that's a powerful message to end on. This whole conversation has been incredibly inspiring. I'm feeling a renewed sense of hope and possibility, a sense that even in the midst of all the challenges we face in the world, there's still so much beauty and goodness and potential waiting to be discovered.
I'm so glad to hear that, and I hope our listeners are feeling that same sense of inspiration. Remember, the higher world is calling. Are you ready to answer?
I love that. We encourage you to explore this book further, coming alive, to experiment with the tools, and to embark on your own journey of transformation. Remember, the life force is within you, and the higher world is closer than you think. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep coming alive.